Welcome everybody to your Badass Journey podcast. Today I have Dan Papandrea. He's an amazing man that I have known for years, and we are reconnecting over this conversation, and I'm just so excited to have him on the show. Welcome, Dan.
Great to be here. I should have to sit up. I have to have better posture, I guess. I'm feeling I'm really badass, from body language perspective, right?
It's so wild how your stance can make a difference in your attitude, right?
True.
It is really cool. And I'm just happy to have you here because, you and I started our careers almost around the same time in the same company. And it's been so fun to obviously be at a distance for a while. And then now we're back in the same region. But I would love for you to let the listeners know a little bit about yourself and how you came to the career you have today. And feel free to share, your journey, basically, so folks know kind of the field you're in and what you do.
Sure. So my journey was kind of an odd one. So I went to school for music and computer science at State University of New York at Oneonta. Go. And so there I was actually doing music. So basic music production, music industry. And I came down to visit my brother for an internship and ended up getting a job at Comedy Central Television Network. And I just ended up, going back to finish. I ended up at NYU. But that made me kind of get into tech. And I really wasn't I just dabbled in computers, but I kind of picked it up and really enjoyed it. So I was tech support there. And then from that point I went to Advent, which is where I ended up meeting you. And at Advent, I was the head of IT for the East, right? So, did a lot of that. And then after you left, I actually transitioned to our flagship product, which was Geneva. And so it was where it was a technical resource, a very technical sale, because the product was this in-memory database and all this other things and like that. And so, I was kind of helping from a sales perspective, implementations, and then I moved into the sales team, and I just grew to love that. And then, seeing new technologies and implementing new technologies, that's what brought me to HPE. So I went to HPE which is a huge company, great company. Just saw a lot of the world, so a lot of different ways that people were selling into. And now I'm at a startup called Sysdig, which is a fantastic company. It's very similar to Advent in the early days. It was everybody wants to be successful together. We have a great product. We feel like we're on a really good trajectory. So again, I almost think my career is happenstance. You ended up getting an intern. You wanted to get an internship at a music studio. You ended up working in a career, and then it just took you to where you are here. So that's kind of how it is from a career perspective.
That's really cool. What is the status now in your music side? Do you integrate any of your learnings into what you've done in tech? How has that kind of come to fold in your career?
It's crazy. A lot of folks are in tech, and I've also have a music background, have this discipline, right? It's you kind of want to go there and you really want to be able to perform, right? And so you really need to know things down packed. I think I also played in a band for a while as well, and so being able to know your parts well enough so that others can work with you and they know their parts. It's the same thing as a sales cycle. It's my sales rep is going to do this. I'm going to do this. If we work too well together, it's going to be a really good concert, right? Whatever. But you get
performance, yeah.
Yeah, it's a performance. Well, but it's not a performance because it's reality. But you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, but it is. Yeah, I do get it. I think it's an amazing alignment. I mean, if you think about a musician's mind, it is many parts, right, coming together to deliver, and there's a lot of teamwork aspect to it, right? And I honestly didn't know about your music background until just now, which is so great to understand, because one of the things that I know from working with you and your personality is that connecting people with other people to create amazing moments is the energy that I always felt about you, in knowing you. And so that's really cool that you found a career that you're able to align that with from your musical stance into tech, because so many people think tech can be so harsh, right, or so hard. And you bring such a great people aspect to it. I think you also are able to represent it in a practical way, which is really cool.
Technology is 90% psychology to 10% just, things that solve problems, right? So I've always thought that way. And in terms of that, the comment about connecting, that whole Malcolm Gladwell thing about, connectors and all that, when I read that book, it kind of made sense because like I always enjoy. So when it's the Italian upbringing, I just like being in this place that everybody can be together, talk together, share their thoughts, and being like a culture that does that. Advent was awesome at it. It's always going to be the bar that I'm going to set every other company towards. Sysdig is very much the same in that respect. It's like, look, we're all here for a common goal. We're going to get together. We're going to have some fun. We're going to do it together, right? It's everybody at Advent, and since like I don't know. I talked to some people from high school. Obviously, I will always those people, but like Advent alumni, when you see them, I feel happy to see folks like you so well. I'm so excited for you. I'm so happy to see people like Ryan, like all the people that we went, like all the people that we know, like, Pete Hess, he's the CEO and now he's over at, at Lithium, right? And it's just, I love to see that. So. Yeah.
And you're right, because it did cultivate a culture of connection. Right. And also I think the leadership team that we worked for empowered us to shine. And that makes a big difference in corporate cultures, to create that synergy that we all felt, and respect for each other in our own disciplines. Because, as green as I was at the start of my career with Advent in my 20s, interacting with each individual there just helped me up level to the next because they were so willing to work with me. Right. I didn't have the drama and the animosity and the territorialism that you sometimes find in certain corporate environments that you're right, it creates this like brother and sisterhood, where we want to like see each other again and cheer each other on.
You almost want to work harder to make that exec hit that level is because that you're helping to contribute to that. Like,
well, and that they're also
name dropping constantly, but like, folks like Mom said, man, I wanted to make that guy just be the complete owner of whatever's going on from that business unit from a Geneva perspective. And, to this day, it's like we get together, like the Geneva folks get together like once a year.
Oh, that's so cool. And now in your new gig and what you're doing at SIG, are you able to cultivate that where you are? Is that something that drives you in your current environment?
It's now the elder statesman. I hate to say it, to be able to, like work with a lot of younger folks, and like this is their first. This is like if we had when we were back in the day, we had folks like Schmutz and some other folks name drop, but we basically like we're those people. I feel like now I'm that person. I'm like I've lived that twice. I've been, I was employee of the year at Advent, and I want to see folks get to that level as well. So the folks I work with now, I'm like, hey, you won't be part of this maybe once or twice in your life. And so just relish these moments, get things done and build your brand, right?
Yeah, the internal brand for anybody working for a company that's growing, especially if you're kind of in that startup to grow up phase, as I call it. And I think, honestly, it was the Advent years that gave me the bug to be entrepreneurial and in that startup arena for year after year after year. It's really cool that you have that energy around you, but also the ability to shine. And I think I'm curious what you would say to someone who's kind of teetering. They're not sure if they're in the right environment. They're not sure if this is the right company for them. I'm not talking about your company in particular, but I know you also do a lot of coaching and advisement of your team. Like, I know how precious your stance is when you actually have to manage someone, because I saw you groom a lot of people along the way. And I'm curious what advice you give to someone who's maybe like teetering and not necessarily sure how to step forward into the career they want.
So if you're not happy doing your job, you probably shouldn't be where you're at. And that's the one thing I will say. I mean, the economy right now is in a place where there is a ton of jobs, right? But also you want to be focused on being vocal about this is the things that I don't like about the job that's going on right now. And if you're in a place that's not open to be able to hear what you're trying to say, then you probably shouldn't be there. And that is, but it's also if you're not saying anything too, people are going to think it's just status quo. It's like, this is what you need to do. This is just, oh, he's fine or she's fine, that kind of thing. So, I mean, that's a tough one, right? It's like you kind of want because I want to make sure I work with the same people because I enjoy who I work with no matter what. But you know what life is, if you're not getting what you want, right, you have to take that next step to the next place. Again, I was at admin for 16 years and I'm going to HP because I feel like I accomplished a lot there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm going to take it to the next. I'll see if I can do the same thing somewhere else, be successful there, go to the next place. But if you're going to be stymied by getting to that next level, then you probably should try to find a place that you are, and then you'll be much more happier, right? So.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, the foundation is communication, right? Like once you're clear on what it is that you want or the fact that you are unhappy, how do you and who do you go to communicate about it to determine the what's next? You know, sometimes I'd say now, because there's so much opportunity, a lot of people think the grass is always greener on the other side too, right? And I've gone through that with the multiple changes I've gone through, but it's something that, you know, and I always try when I coach my clients, it's like, you know, have you exercised everything possible in the environment you're in before you jump out, you know, or before you just say, I quit and I'm just gonna, that this shiny new object over here looks better, you know?
Yeah, so it's like having both, like, you have to have the conversation. It's like, I'm going to jump without really having that conversation, right? You have to have that conversation. It's a tough one. But if you have it, then you don't really, you know, you won't be able to grow as a person, as well as if you end up the next gig and it's bad and you do, you know, it's a slippery slope, right?
Yeah. And I just think we're in such an interesting environment with how tech and the digital age is like affecting the brain span for commitment, right? Like, and what we absorb all the time, that you kind of think that there's always going to be something better, something different, or, you know, whatever that looks like. And it's just interesting, you know, a leadership stance like yours is to keep an open door, right, for the communication. So if you were to tell somebody else similar to you that's in tech, that's in leadership, you know, you have the sales aspect to it. So you're talking to your clients all the time too, and trying to make sure you have the best solutions for them. You know, how would you advise somebody who is moving into a leadership role and not necessarily sure what their communication stance is or how to create an open environment? What are the things you do with your teams?
So, I mean, we have an open dialogue. I mean, we're trying to like just make sure that what, you know, if there's things that are somewhat critical, then said in such a way that that's gets them to progress as a person. So I think the challenge for anybody jumping into leadership is being able to have that open door, but also be able to have those frank conversations. You're going to have to say some things that like are going to help to motivate. I've had it. You know, we've all had it. You've had it, I'm sure, right? Mm-hmm. So it's having those frank conversations, but also making sure there's a spin that it gets us to the next level from that perspective. Like, slow down when you're presenting something, right? Or, you know, focus on kind of organizing your day. Or can you kind of help me understand what your plan is so I can help you get there? Because if I don't know what your plan is, again, going back to that communication tenet that you said, if I don't know what your plan is, how can I help you get there, right?
Yeah.
Anybody coming into that leadership role is always going to be like an individual contributor, like, I'm just going to go and do it. You know, true leadership is saying that you can get 5 individual contributors going and making those things happen. Super tough, right? Because sometimes you might not have hired that person. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they feel slighted because they think they should be in that role, right? It's really tough, right? So no answers here. It's just, you know, I'm just gonna spout off what I'm thinking is.
I love it. Yeah, well, that's real though, right? Because that is the natural. When you're natural about your own abilities and you shine a light on them, it becomes more approachable for people then to share, you know, and not feel like it's a closed door. And I always like to. When I coach my executives, there's a lot of reminding them to ask and not so much as assume they know what's going on with their team or each individual, et cetera, especially when it's a crisis. Generally, I'm brought in, you know, my consulting firm, like we're brought in when there's a crisis a lot of the time. And it's almost like, okay, I have to put everything on pause and let's ask the questions, like what's really going on here so we can get to the root of it. Right. And I appreciate your approach and your style in leadership is that, you know, you create the door, the open door is there, but you're also showing them how, you know, and you're asking the questions to get to the truth so that you can build it together, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So tell me what you've been focused on lately, and kind of what is it that maybe you want to share, like a badass moment with our listeners that you're most proud of.
Currently, well, my children, obviously, that's my, I'm definitely very obviously, like, that's probably the best thing I've contributed to this world. But in terms of work, I just was just nominated the H1 Rockstar. That's just by it's a kind of award they give out for the region that had did the best, which was the East Coast. And again, I'm very humble in that. There was a team effort. It was all a full team. From inside reps all the way to sales reps to our other SEs around the team. And so I was very happy about that. I mean, what we're doing now is trying to scale this business, right? Because you get to a point where you realize you can't be on every call. You want to make sure that there's, and again, that whole idea of now taking that skill and bottling it and helping other people get there, and also learning from those people. There might be things that you want to add to your skill set. So again, scaling your own capability, but also scaling the levels of the team. That's of interest to me. So,
yeah, scaling is always such a great challenge, and to do it at the right pace. I think, again, that's another lesson learned we had way back when we started Advent, because of what it was initially and then what it had become just in the short 5 years I was there, but also continued to become. I really like that growth pace. And sometimes in these startup environments, there's this like manic pace that you have to grow so fast that you don't know how to sustain it. I'm curious, with your perspective on technology and what you've been exposed to, do you feel like scaling a business has a faster rate now with the tech that's out there, or is
without a doubt? I mean, there's technologies that took play, so there's technologies out there that basically, it was like, if you look at 10 years ago to 5 years ago to 2 years ago, the adoption of new technologies so quickly and so rapidly. And then things that are happening going forward that are going to make people, think about what they're doing. Like, and you're making this investment, you're making a large investment from my customer's perspective. And we got to be like, look, we're going to help you solve the now and then solve the future, because there's so much stuff that's coming out. Google's, Facebook's, the LinkedIn's, the Microsofts of the world, the Apples. I mean, the innovation's coming at us so quick. You have to have your ear to the grindstone. So it's almost like ADD theater, because you're like, hey, let me focus on what I'm doing now, but I got to sell to this customer that's thinking, hey, I need to do this, this, and this going forward. So you have to be abreast of all of that. So any startup is like, if they're in a niche market, like we're in a fairly niche market, but it's literally on the cusp of being. We sell to microservices containers. Like, so basically, if you heard of the term Docker, we sell to like those the folks that are orchestrating microservices. And so, like, that world has, it's different from a week ago. It's different from a year ago, and it's going forward. So we have to kind of, roll with those punches, and not so much punches, but roll with the changes and being able to be cognizant of it. But those. Yeah. So to really just to boil it down to just being cognizant of what technologies are out there. So then you can service your customers as well as augment your own skill set.
Yeah, so it's like the scalability with the sustainability.
Right.
Right. Like it's that same eye or two eyes. We need to make it in order to be successful and trusted and sustain the ever-changing tech environment that we're in. I think it's an interesting pace that we're at now. And I think a lot of companies are, it's amazing to me that some companies actually run on like 20-year-old, platforms, like, to catch up and do a transformation and change over. It's just a whole nother environment to think about.
From a business perspective, value perspective, they're going to have to. Because they're going to have to adapt to, this disruptive technology that are there. You think about Uber, right? Or you think about Uber or Lyft or what have you.
Yeah.
New York is completely changed because of that. Like, people like using that to do things. Amazon, another great example, right? They can go, doing what they have to do. It's like, you can literally, it used to be that somebody had to call me. I'd have to rack a server. I'd have to do all these things.
Yeah.
Now it's just like, click a button. I can do that. or I'm only using this much resource. I don't have to, commit to everything, right? So it's a great time to be alive, though. Think about it. Like now people are much more faster in their way to innovate. They're much more faster going to market with this stuff because they have the ability to literally click a button and have what's up here to be exposed to the masses. It's a great time to be alive.
It really is. And it's so cool to see it across so many. And I would say, the entrepreneurial spirit is so large too, so that you can actually launch something fairly quickly now between like getting your website ready, a digital marketing campaign, producing your products, getting your service or your tech out there with ease. And it is just an ever-changing world, which is just so wild to be a part of. I do think we came up in it at the right time to see. So because for me, when I graduated college, that's when like the internet was born, right? Yeah. And so it's been an interesting evolution just in my 20 years of it all. And then also to just continue to see how innovation progresses is just really cool as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as we close out today's conversation, I would love to hear from you. When you hear the word badass, how do you define it?
Dan Papandrea.
That's right. Poppy in the house.
The way that I see it is, look, it's anybody who can do their job really well, that can motivate others as well to do their job really well, and also that's enjoying everything that life has to be offered. And that means balance, right? That means family. And it's easier said than done with me. My wife will be like, I see you once a week, and it's like, look, I'm doing this for a reason, right? I want to get us to the next level, right? So, that to me is being a badass, right? It's all having that balance between being a badass at work, being a badass at home, being a badass with your family, your friends, that network that you have. Like when I saw your notes, like I jumped at the chance to be able to talk to you because I haven't seen you in a long time, and I'm so happy and proud of you where you're at. So it's just like, it's like, cool, this is a great interview, but it's more like, hey, I want to see you and see how you're doing. So thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. And sharing your badass journey with everyone. If anyone wants to connect with you, learn more about your business, etc., what's the best way for them to contact you?
I'm on LinkedIn, so it's pretty much Dan Papandrea. I'm also on Twitter as Dan Pop NYC. You'll see a lot of tech stuff. You'll see a lot of just various ramblings and stuff like that, and pictures of my kids sometimes. But that's pretty much what it is. But I'm Pop at Sysdig. Pretty much Pop is the kind of standard thing. That was actually part of my contract when I came over to Sysdig. I'm like, I'm pop at sysdig.com or I'm not coming over.
I love it. Well, I'll make sure to add it all in the show notes so people can connect with you as needed. And again, thank you so much for being on today's podcast. And ultimately, we will be hanging out. I can't wait to meet your kids. And I'm just so excited. Yeah. I would love it. So thanks again, Dan, for being on today's show. And we'll talk soon.
Thanks so much. Proud of you, Kareen. See you later.
Okay, bye.